Hi, everybody. This is social psychology. This is a pretty big chapter. It's very interesting. Social psychology is the study of how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by other people, or how are they in the presence of other people. In other words, how do we influence each other? Now, remember, sociology is the study of culture and society. Social psychology is the study of the individual and how it's influenced by other people. So I'm using this as a funny example. She is rebelling against the norm. That is an interesting, unique behavior that I think is funny. It's more symbolic than anything. But how do we act differently around other people than we do by ourselves? That is what social psychology focuses on. We talk about conformity, rebellion, lots of interesting stuff, and physical appearance. I've always been interested in the study of sexual attraction. Why do we find other people attractive and not? So let me start off with this. People tend to ascribe desirable personality characteristics to good-looking people and see them as more sociable, friendly, poised, warm, and well-adjusted than ugly people. It's true. We tend to think of if you're beautiful, then you must be good in all ways. There is a word for that, and I'm going to have you write it down. But is that reality? No. It turns out that ugly people there is little correlation between attractiveness and personality traits. So remember the big five. You can actually, if you can get a rating on how attractive people are, and then you see if that correlates with the big five, which is a reliable personality measurement, then you can actually do some real science on personality and attractiveness. I mean, it's not perfect, but if you can get a rating, people who score a 3, are they conscientious? Are they agreeable? And the answer is that there is no correlation. And so what we call this the halo effect. Write this down. The halo effect is when we tend to think positively about beautiful people. And I, as a teacher, I have fallen for this. I have found that, and it's not always, but I feel stupid and I feel really bad when it happens to me. But if I have an attractive student, whether it's male or female, and they're well dressed and everything, I always think in my head, they'll be fine. They'll get caught up on their work. And then I forget to nag them, and they end up almost failing my class because I haven't been nagging them. But if somebody looks like a gangbanger or something, I'm more likely to, hound them about their grades and stuff. So I have fallen for the halo effect before. But ugly people are just as competent as beautiful people, even though studies have found that attractive people do have a lot of advantages in this world. Okay, so let's talk about interpersonal attraction. Ladies, which one man do you prefer? A or B? Well, it turns out that when asked which one of these guys do ladies prefer, it turns out that the guy on the right, they prefer the guy on the right for a matrimonial ad. But if I understand female psychology, women prefer A only when they're fertile. When they're fertile, the 2 days out of the month when they're ready to make babies, when they're ovulating, they will prefer the more masculine man. But most of the month, women prefer the more feminized man. They've done that with sheep as well. They've done studies with sheep, and they would give a female sheep a choice to go with the nice, safe-looking sheep or the mean horns-looking sheep. And 2 days out of the month, the fertile period, the female sheep will choose the mean-looking one. Same thing here. Which guy do you prefer? Okay, well, women tend to prefer this guy because he looks safe. But a few days out of the month, when they're fertile, they will prefer the more masculinized. By the way, these men do not exist. They're composite photographs. Okay. but some, when you get into more deep sexual attraction for women, women have a dual strategy. They want to marry this guy, but they want to have an affair with this guy. Just depends. Guys, which one do you prefer? Okay. I think studies have shown that guys always prefer the one on the right. Oh, no, it's the left, on the left. Now, there is one thing, and I've seen this on the AP exam once. Men prefer females who are in their fertile period. And there's about 3 days out of the month where women are ovulating and they are ready to make babies. That is being fertile. And it shows in the skin quality. It shows in the way women smell. A lot of that's not going to be on the test. You get my point. All right. Another thing is facial symmetry. Now, we're not absolutely sure, but it turns out that in general, facial symmetry is a strong indicator of sexual attractiveness. Even when you're not talking about sexual attractiveness, we tend to think, oh, he's attractive, she's attractive. Even if we're not trying to mate with them, we judge people's attractiveness based on facial symmetry. Okay? So if symmetry means that the left side matches the right side. And we tend to think that symmetrical faces are more attractive. Now, there are problems with that, but that's when you get into more deep psychology and stuff that I don't want to get into. But facial symmetry is an indicator of sexual attractiveness. Okay? Another thing, mere exposure effect. When you are exposed to another person's face for long periods of time, you do get more attracted to them. That's called the mere exposure effect. And that's not true with just people, but it's true with products. That's why when you see an advertisement for Coca-Cola, then advertisements do work, okay? Because you get exposed to the same thing again and again and again. And culture does matter, okay? What's attractive in one culture is not necessarily attractive in a different culture, but it does vary by culture. Okay, but that's the mere exposure effect means that you are exposed to them again and again and again, and they become more attractive to you. And that's men and women. All right, here's an outdated meme. Okay. Okay, reciprocity. When you find out that somebody is attracted to you, then you become attracted to them. It's true. I've seen it before. I've experienced it before. When people find you attractive, then you find them attractive. That's called reciprocity. Okay? Similarity. Now, it is a myth that opposites attract. That is a myth. It turns out that we tend to be attracted to people who grew up in the similar situation that we did. Like, for example, in modern times, rich kids are not attracted to poor kids. So you tend to be attracted to somebody who grew up in a similar environment that you, has the same religion as you, and listens to similar music to you. And this idea that we're attracted to people who are opposite is way overblown. Yes, there are some things like if you're an extrovert that you're attracted to an introvert. That could be true, but the point is and there is something about like I'm irresponsible, so I'm attracted to people who are responsible. There may be something to that, but in general, opposites do not attract. That is a myth. Okay? So in summary, and this is what I would have students write down, facial symmetry is a factor of attractiveness, mere exposure. So that's why you have so many workplace affairs, because you see the same people again and again and again, and you become more attracted to them. Similarity, we tend to be attracted to people who are similar to us. That is not true. We are not attracted to our brothers and sisters. That is absolutely not true there. And women do tend to prioritize status. If you want to attract a woman, you make them laugh and you show them that you are successful in your job. And men tend to prioritize looks at the beginning, especially fertility, but that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that men are attracted to. And women do like a handsome man, but when girls say, hey, y'all, guess what? I've got a boyfriend. The first thing that the girls ask usually is, what does he do? And I'm talking about young adults. What does he do? And if I don't care how attractive a man is, if a man is unemployed, he's going to remain single. It's just the truth. Okay? And the rules are different from adults than teenagers. Okay? All right, so let's try this question. According to evolutionary psychologists, okay, hit pause, look at the question, but we're talking about evolutionary psychology, meaning survival of the fittest. The answer is B. Men do place more emphasis on physical attractiveness, and women do prioritize status. That is not an AP question. Here's another non-AP question. How individuals are affected by the presence of others is the focus of what? And the answer is social psychology. All right, this is an AP question. The factors chiefly responsible for interpersonal attraction include what? All right, hit pause, but the answer is proximity and similarity. Proximity meaning like mere exposure. You're near somebody again and again. You work with them every day. So that's mere exposure. And then similarity. Okay? All right. Research on physical attractiveness has shown that what? All right, hit pause, look at your notes, but the answer is C, the halo effect. Good-looking people tend to be warmer and more moral and tend to be better employees than ugly people. That is not true, but that's what we think. That's called the halo effect. All right. Which of the following factors is an important predictor of attraction? All right. Hit pause, but the answer is all three. All three. All right, moving right along. Okay, now if you've studied development, then you understand what a social schema is. And little kids talk about like a set of ideas that they have about something. They think a dog is any furry animal with tails. Okay, well, we have schemas when it comes to people. And these social schemas are organized clusters of ideas about categories of social events and people. Okay, and this is where we get stereotypes from. I don't think I've seen this word on the AP exam, so I'm going to move on. But I have seen the word stereotype. A stereotype is a type of schema. It's a specific characteristic we assume somebody has because of their social schema. Oh, you're from Dallas or you're from Texas, so you must ride a horse to work. Okay? Or you're from the United States, so you must own a gun. Okay? So we all have stereotypes about people. And stereotypes are specific. Okay? And keep in mind that there is a confirmation bias going on with stereotypes. We tend to notice behaviors in others that fit our already preconceived notions. We notice the Asians who get straight A's. We notice the emo who cuts themselves. We notice the white guy who can't dance. We see what we expect to see. Okay? We see what we expect to see. Okay? And we tend to ignore events that don't fit our stereotypes. We think of that as a rare exception, like a redneck with a college degree. We go, oh, that's just an exception. Okay? A stereotype is defined as which of the following? Okay, hit pause. The answer is, it's a generalization about a social group. Oh, you're an emo, so you must be depressed. Okay? Holding a predetermined belief about a group of people, regardless of the personal qualities of the individual members, is referred to as what? All right, the answer is A. That's stereotyping. Discrimination, that's a behavior, but stereotyping is a thought. Okay? All right, write this down. An illusory correlation. It's when you think you have confirmed your stereotype more often than you actually have. For example, you say that you have never met an honest lawyer when in fact you have met a few. Or you think all black girls are sassy when in fact you have met many who aren't. This is an error because of our confirmation bias. Okay, you think you've never met a white guy who can't, who can dance when you have met a few. That's called illusory correlation. Think of the word illusory as false, illusion, false correlation. Okay, just a joke. You think all Asians are good at math, but there are a few that aren't, okay? Okay. So here's some evidence for the illusory correlation. Subjects watched a video of a woman listening to classical music, drinking beer, and watching TV. If the subjects were told the woman was a librarian, then they remembered she listened to classical music. If the subjects were told she was a waitress, they remember the beer. So we remember what we expect to remember. All right. A man who believes that women just don't make good leaders may dwell on his female supervisor's mistakes and quickly forget about her achievements. That's also confirmation bias. But what's the answer to this question? The answer is B, illusory correlation, false correlation. All right, this is so interesting, and it's so much more interesting than I make it. In-group versus out-group. The in-group is who you hang with, and out-group is everybody else. Okay, so let's say you hang out with this group right here. And also there's out-group homogeneity bias. Homo means same. Homogeneity is when you say, if you're in this group, then you think, oh, those people, they're all the same. But what if this was your in-group? This is who you hang out with. And then you think to yourself, oh, these guys, they're all the same. They're just a bunch of conformist cheerleaders. They're all the same. That's what it means to be in an in-group and out-group. Out-group homogeneity bias is when you think someone in the out-group that they're all the same. So in-group is when you become a part of the group and you're in. And out-group is everyone else. Okay? So which is true of social stereotypes? Remember the out-group homogeneity bias, but the answer is, so likable members of a rejected group are perceived as an exception. Okay, so let's say you don't like cheerleaders, but then you meet a really cool one. You're like, oh, well, she's the exception. Okay? Attributions. Think of the word attribute. Attributions are inferences that people draw about the causes of events. It's an inference that you draw about the causes of other people's behavior. How do you explain other people's behavior? How do you explain your own behavior? What caused it? Why does that individual act like a jerk? That's an attribution. So write this down. What is attribution theory? It's when we say others' behavior is caused by dispositional and situational attributions. Underline dispositional. Dispositional means internal. So when you say somebody, let's say somebody acts like a jerk, and then you give that an internal or a dispositional attribution. Dispositional is when you say, that's just who they are. They act like a jerk because they are a jerk. That's what a dispositional attribution is. It's when you say it's just part of who they are. So when I make a mistake and I say, I'm sorry, I just made a mistake, and then somebody else says to me, you know what, you made a mistake because that's just who you are. You're a jerk. And yet that you couldn't help it because that's just who you are. Then they are making a dispositional attribution about my mistake. So let me ask you something. When you make a mistake, is it something that you did, or is it just who you are? If it's who you are, then that's dispositional. But if it's just situational, then it's just something that you did. Okay? And sometimes we make a mistake. All right? Let's say somebody cuts us off. We're driving down the road and somebody cuts us off. If we gave it a situational attribution, we might say, well, maybe that driver is sick. Maybe that driver's rushing to the hospital to say goodbye to their wife or something. And then if we give it a situational attribution, then we may be more tolerant to it. But if we give it a dispositional attribution, then we put a label on it. You drive like an asshole because you are an asshole. That's a dispositional attribution. And then that's when you flip them off and get road rage and all that stuff. I used to have road rage, and I just stopped caring if people passed me on the road, and I stopped driving in the fast lane. Okay? And when we make an error about this, we call this the fundamental attribution error. Write the red down. When we say that something is dispositional when it's actually situational, we call that the fundamental attribution error. So I'm a teacher, and if a student is sleeping, doesn't know the answers to anything, is failing my class, and I say the reason you're sleeping is because you're lazy and you chose to play video games last night and you are just a loser. But the reality is that my student has to work a late at night to feed his family. Then I just made an error. I made a mistake. I committed the fundamental attribution error. Here's another example. So I see a bum asking for money, and I say, what a bum, he just wants a beer. And then the bum is actually just trying to get off the streets. Then I just committed the fundamental error in attribution. Okay? Here's another example. Why is Aurelia behaving like a dork? Situational, she's under pressure. Dispositional, she's self-involved and clueless. That's just who she is. And that may lead to the fundamental attribution error. If you accidentally say it's dispositional and when it's really situational, you may commit this error. All right. When Kara's boyfriend bought her flowers, she thought, he buys me flowers because he's such a nice person. – This kind of explanation was referred to as what? The answer is you're attributing a behavior to something. What is the cause of a behavior? That's attribution. And in this case, it was a dispositional attribution. All right, write this down. Self-serving bias. A self-serving bias is we can't lose. When things go well, it's because we are awesome. But when things go bad, we blame external factors on it. So when we ace a test, it's because we're smart and we studied hard. But when we fail a test, then it's because the teacher's a jerk, the test wasn't fair. I couldn't study because I had to go to work last night. We blame the universe. So the fact is that we could do either one, but we never lose. That's called a self-serving bias. Okay? So we take credit for when things go good, but then when things don't go good, we don't take the blame. We say it's because of something outside of ourselves, an external factor. Okay? True story. If my students do well on the AP psychology exam, then I will say it's because I am such an awesome teacher. But if my students don't do well, then I'm more likely to say, those lazy MFers, why couldn't they study more? It's their fault. I did the best I could. It's on them. And teachers do that all the time. It's called a self-serving bias. We're going to be fine no matter how poorly or how well you do. And you're going to do the same thing. If you fail the AP psychology exam, then you're going to blame some external factor. But if you pass it, then you're not going to credit everyone else. You're going to take full credit for you passing it. That's the self-serving bias. You can't lose that way. All right. According to the self-serving bias, when we perform well, we typically attribute our success to what? Okay, when we perform well, then we attribute our success to us, the inside. So the answer is A. Remember that word, dispositional. That's who you are or who somebody else is. All right. According to the fundamental attribution error, which of the following is most likely to be a student's explanation for a classmate's failing exam grade? All right, so look at your notes, but the answer is, so remember your classmate failed, so you're going to give that a dispositional attribution. It's just who they are. So the answer is A. Attribution theory concerns our tendency to explain our behavior and that of others, our behavior and that of others, by inferring the causes on the basis of internal and external factors. Okay, that's when you make an attribution, you're asking yourself what caused the behavior. All right. The tendency to believe that another person's behavior is caused by dispositional factors rather than by environmental factors is called what? So that guy cut you off on the road because he's just a jerk. That's just who he is. That's the fundamental attribution error. Which of the following best reflects an external attribution? Okay, hit pause, external, outside. The answer is, all right, so the fact that the test was unfair, that means it's outside, external. So Marcy, instead of taking responsibility, she blames the test. That's an external attribution. All right. You were walking into a store when a man rudely cuts in front of you, almost shoving you so that he may enter the store first. What a jerk, you think to yourself. As you enter the store, you see the same man performing an emergency tracheotomy on a woman with a collapsed windpipe. You have just done what? Okay, the answer is, hit pause, but the answer is, you just made the fundamental attribution error. You failed to recognize the situation and you just jumped at saying, what a jerk. Juana began her banking career as a teller, but she was quickly promoted to increasingly more responsible managerial positions. Despite the fact that she has very limited experience to justify her promotions, she believes that she has been successful because she is very talented. Which of the following explanations is she using to justify her success? All right, so she's saying that her success is internal instead of external, and the answer is she's doing just fine, okay? But if she had been fired or she didn't get promoted, she would have blamed the universe or something. That's self-serving bias. A student has just failed a psychology exam. Which of the following explanations is least likely to be evidence of the self-serving bias? So we're looking for something that's good, because self-serving bias is not a good thing. So look for something bad. The answer is, no, we're looking for something good. The self-serving bias is a bad thing, so we're looking for something good. The answer is take responsibility. Everything else is external. We want something that's internal. Blame yourself. All right, write this down. Self-fulfilling prophecy. It turns out that if you tell somebody that they're stupid, that it's going to come true. If you tell a little kid that they're not good at math, then it turns out that their math scores will drop. If you tell girls that they are better at verbal skills, then it's actually going to become more true, and boys are going to get worse at it. Same thing with racial stereotypes. If you say that your race is real aggressive, then it turns out that kids who hear that will internalize it, and then it will become true. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think it, then it must, and it's going to become true. So be careful what you tell little kids. Okay? Be careful what you tell yourself. All right. A supervisor who doubts the competence of a new employee unwittingly criticizes everything the new employee does. If the new employee consequently performs poorly, which of the following will most likely have occurred? So you criticize an employee and then the employee becomes a bad employee. The answer is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. All right. People often have expectations about another person that influence how they act toward that person. Such expectations in turn cause that person to behave consistently with the original expectations. This phenomenon is known as what? Hit pause, read it again, but the answer is, okay. All right, write these down. So when you're trying to persuade people of something, these three things come into play, and I have seen these on the AP exam. And they come from the old days of door-to-door salesmen. So if a guy were to knock on your door, and then you open the door, and then they stick their foot in the door so you can't shut it. By the way, you get shot doing that in America. Sorry, but it's true. You know, that is aggressive, but that's what they would do back in the 50s with housewives that didn't have guns, okay? but it's aggressive. But there's something called the foot in the door phenomenon. It's when somebody is trying to get you to do something, what they do is they ask you to do something small. And then you agree to that small thing. And then later, they ask you to do something much bigger. And then you want consistency in your mind. So what you do is say, well, I agreed to the smaller request. It would be inconsistent if I don't agree to do the bigger request. We call that the foot in the door phenomenon. All right? So if you ask somebody, can I copy the first third of your homework? And you say, just the first third. And then you say, hey, you already let me copy the first third. Can I copy all of your homework? And then they're like, well, it would be inconsistent if I didn't let you copy the whole thing. So then they let you copy the whole thing. That's called foot in the door. Door in the face is when you ask somebody for a big favor. They reject you. Are you crazy? So you say, Dad, can I have a car? What? Are you crazy? Well, since I can't have a car, can I at least have a cell phone? You see that? And so by comparison, the cell phone seems like a small thing. It's also true with grades and getting in trouble. You say, Mom, I'm pregnant. What? No, but I did flunk chemistry. And you see, and then now it doesn't seem so bad. That's like the door in the face technique. You ask for something big, you get rejected, and then you capitalize on the guilt of them rejecting you, and then you actually get the smaller request. That's door in the face. Okay? Oh, and by the way, foot in the door, another example of that is when you go buy a car, they'll say, do you want to buy some floor mats? Or when you go to an electronics store and they say, do you want to buy a warranty? It's just a few dollars more. You already bought the laptop. You might as well buy a warranty with it. You see that? That's like foot in the door. Reciprocity. I give you something, so you do something for me. So when you go to a big chain store and they're giving out free samples in the grocery store, studies show that when you give away free samples, that you actually sell more of the product. Okay? That's called reciprocity. So if I give you $1 or I give you some money, and then an hour later I go, hey, remember me? I gave you $1 earlier, no problem. By the way, can I copy your homework? That's reciprocity. Okay? So check that out. He's trying to do door in the face, but it's not working. Okay. You are asked by a close friend to outline a complete text, a complete book, to aid her in studying for a final exam. You refuse. Later, your friend asks if you would at least outline just 2 chapters. Feeling guilty, you now agree to help. Your behavior is predicted by the what? All right, so you turn your friend down for outlining an entire book, but so you feel guilty, so you do the first 2 chapters. The answer is door in the face technique. All right. AP question. Which of the following behaviors is most closely associated with foot in the door phenomenon? Okay, hit pause, but the answer is, now make sure that there's some sort of persuasion going on. But the answer is C. Something little, then something bigger. That's foot in the door. Okay. All right, write this down. Okay, moving right along. So the central route of persuasion is when you use facts and logic to get somebody to do something. Peripheral route of persuasion is when you use emotions. You're using feelings like love and belonging. That's peripheral route of persuasion. Let me show you some advertisements. And I want you to think, is it central route or is it peripheral route? Okay? So central route is going directly through the rational mind, influencing attitudes and evidence with evidence and logic. My product has been proven more effective. But then the peripheral route of persuasion, changing attitudes by going around the rational mind and appealing to fears, appealing to desires, associations, okay? Associations. So peripheral is when you go around the rational mind. People who buy my product are happy and attractive. So let's look at some advertisements. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. So is this central or peripheral? Is it saying that you should buy Nike because Nike is good quality? No, so it's peripheral. Android, be together, not the same. So is this saying that Android is better than Apple? Is it talking about is Android like literally better and more functional? That's not what the ad is saying. So this is another peripheral route. If only your luggage was this unbreakable. And then it's talking about the safety of this truck. So it's appealing to your rational mind. Toyota trucks are safe and reliable. So this would be central route. All right. Julie is trying to explain to her parents why they should allow her to attend art school in New York. Think Felicity. She presents them with information on tuition, graduation, and retention rates, financial aid, and enrollment. What is Julie using? She's using logic, so the answer is central route to persuasion. All right, that's enough for this part.